Today, on the final chapter of Do We Really Live on a Globe? We tackle anomalies, as in things we can see and experience with our own eyes that are impossible to explain on one of these. We're going to start at the beginning and at the end of days. Here is a beautiful sunrise that I captured in Florida on a very low humidity day, and where it looks like the sun is half up because it hasn't come around the curve of the earth yet. When you zoom in, you see it's already very high in the sky. How is that possible if we're only seeing half of it because of the curve? This is where you need to take a minute and ask yourself questions. Ask yourself, well, if I can zoom in and the sun is already up, maybe something else is going on here that is not allowing me to see the full sun. Maybe there's atmosphere that can create a lensing effect, and maybe, just maybe, perspective isn't in play. As in, when something goes further away, it gets lower in your field of vision. Kind of like in this sunset, we all know that these clouds are not touching the water, but they're far enough away that they became low enough in my field of vision to do exactly what the sun is doing. Moving further and further away and getting lower and lower in your field of vision until it disappears. And because the humidity was high on that day, the humidity was acting as a lens, kind of like this magnifying glass. I'm only moving backwards there. I'm not going down, kind of like the sun is only moving backwards here. But now go watch a sunset in Mexico with a super low humidity day again, and you see that the sun goes off into the distance and it shrinks because as something goes further away, it gets smaller and lower. And then finding other anomalies that cannot be explained away in the heliocentric model, like seeing the sun during the eclipse and the actual sun in the firmament projecting to the sun that we actually see. And again, the same exact thing. Layers of the firmament projecting from the actual sun, and seeing things like this that isn't a solar flare because that's the solar flare that don't make sense on the model of the world you live in. You don't just ignore it. You look into it and say, what in the world is actually going on here? And you try to make sense of it. And well, it's funny that making sense of it aligns perfectly with the Bible. And when you see the sun, which is supposedly 93 million miles away, nestled beautifully into a fluffy layer of clouds, you gotta ask yourself, how is that possible? And experiencing things like anti-crepuscular rays that are impossible if the sun is 93 million miles away, because you can triangulate these rays back to the source, not only above the sun, but below the sun as well. Again, this is impossible. All these rays would be coming in at the same angle if the sun was really 93 million miles away. But again, you can triangulate it back up to the source. And last, but certainly not least, if you go explore what the stars actually look like instead of what that four-letter agency tells us and what they put in the books, you see that they look nothing like burning balls of gas trillions of miles away. And maybe, just maybe, we've all been led to believe this, so we don't know the true nature of where we live, and we don't know the true nature of who created it, or who we are, or how powerful we actually are, and how we can manifest things, and how we have the ability to do whatever we want. And maybe a big part of the reason this was created was so you don't trust your senses. Because if you can look up and see the moon and the stars and the sun circling you, yet you can somehow be convinced that you are rotating at 1,000 miles per hour faster than the speed of sound, well, then you can't trust your own senses, and you need to appeal to the authority and ask, Mr. Teacher, Mr. Government official, can you please inform me on the information because I don't trust myself? Well, I'm here to give you your power back. I'm here to say, trust yourself. Learn to re-accept your senses. Learn to trust your senses. Find your senses because they're hidden inside of you, and all you have to do is want to get them back. And they're yours. You just gotta want it. And once you realize you don't live on one of infinite of these and infinite galaxies with infinite nonsense of space, well, then you realize you're here with a purpose, and you are very, very special and very, very significant. And like I said, you have a lot of power, more than you could ever realize. And if you've made it through all these videos and you still are having a hard time challenging your already established beliefs, well, then let me ask you a question. Why? Are you afraid? Are you afraid what might be on the other side? Are you afraid you might have to give up on some things you've enjoyed your whole life? Well, I got news for you. The other side, although it might seem scary, it's a whole lot better. I promise you, because you live in a world where you're not fearful. You're not fearful of them. You're not fearful of dying. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. And I'm here to give you that little gift, because this big ball of lies, it keeps it from you. Like I said, I just want to give it back. And if you've made it through this video and you still have questions, I encourage you to go to that website or go to the App Store and download this app, because it's the only place in the entire flat realm that you live in that you can actually research things and get non-censored, unbiased opinion, just literal, real science, measurable, repeatable, observable science. And use my code, FITFLAT, and have an awesome day. Oh, and of course, this was all for entertainment purposes. I create these videos for the views and just to entertain you with my satirical opinion. Entertainment only.